Hello and welcome back to another video for Final Fantasy XIV with me, Meoni. This time we're looking at the summary of Live Letter Part 63. This was the second part of the 5.5 preview Live Letter that happened today, the 2nd of April 2021. In this video we're going to go over a summary of these notes and go through it as much as possible of what's actually happening in 5.5. For the majority of details, however, we've already looked at that, and the special site has already treated us and spoiled us to all of the major information, but we've got some finer details to go through. First of all, in the introduction of the letter from a producer live part 63, we actually got a look at the new 5.5 trailer. This has been long overdue, and I highly recommend you actually go and watch this yourself. It's full of spoilers, however, so if you don't want to know anything about that, I won't tell you here. They also announced that they've passed 22 million players concurrently, so they celebrated with that with a little balloon and some, well, not fireworks, but confetti that came out of it, which is very cool. 22 million players, that's a big deal. Obviously, with a real-world situation, it does mean that more people are playing the game, but that's a really positive thing for the game going forward. So first of all, they decide to recap a lot of the 5.5 features and sort of ascertain what's coming, of course, with a new main storyline quest in 5.5, with a new dungeon, the Paglfar dungeon there, which they didn't decide to actually show anything of in the live letter. The new trial, which is obviously on the cloud deck with Diamond Weapon, which they did show, which we'll show you in a few moments, and pretty much all of the stuff we already know about up until this point. Next up, they talk about the Save the Queen stuff and Zadnaw, which will be the next part, the next battleground of the Resistance weapon series and the Save the Queen storyline. So Zadnaw and all of the Resistance weapon storyline unfortunately will not be in patch 5.5. This is unfortunately being pushed to patch 5.55, which is supposed to be coming out towards the end of May, after the Digital FanFest. So if you were wondering if you're going to have to, get your weapons ready for the next upgrade, the final chapter, sadly, you're going to have all the way up until May or late May to actually get that sorted. So for me personally, doing 17 weapons, I have plenty more time to do that. So the unlock requirements for Zadnaw in patch 5.55 at the end of May will only be the 5.4 main storyline completion and the 5.45 Save the Queen storyline completed. This means that you will only need a requirement of rank 10 to actually get into Zadnaw, because obviously storyline completion of the previous stuff is locked behind rank 10. So there is no need to be rank 15. However, there is a new resistance cap up to level 25 now of ranking, which you can get in both Bosja and of course Zadnaw once it's unlocked. There will be lots of new critical engagements in Zadnaw, and skirmishes will be added, and there's also going to be a new 48-player critical engagement called Dalrada, which basically is a giant airship, which I had called, if you watched my predictions tea time previously, which I'm very happy about, which will be like Castrum Lacus Latore, only in a battleground. It's basically a large airship that has docked in the zone of Zadnaw, and will be assaulting that type fortress building airship thing. There will be elements of progression, they say, beyond rank 25 being implemented. I'm not sure what that really means, but they say there is progression after rank 25 if you want to hit crazy numbers of damage, quote-unquote. Another quote here from Yoshi P, "You can progress here before entering Delibram Savage, for example," end quote. So, yeah, it's low ranking to get in here, just a completion of a storyline, and there will be something to do after rank 25, which will be the new cap. So there we go. In terms of adjustments to the Save the Queen series actually coming in 5.5, so, on April the 13th, that includes a means to increase mount speed in these new Save the Queen areas, supposedly. I think I read that correctly, so you'll be able to increase your mount speed if you're worrying about things feeling a little bit slow in those areas, including Bosja. Skirmishes and critical engagements will be adjusted for fewer participants. So instead of not having that many people doing it and suffering because of that, the actual critical engagement itself will be scaled down to the amount of players present, which is very, very good. Additionally, they say the availability for large-scale assaults such as Castrum will also be adjusted, so there will be no longer on that long gas timer. They should be a lot more frequent, which is, again, another good thing, especially for future-proofing. The chances of being selected for the duels after certain critical engagements, which you may or may not be aware of, will now actually be increased based on your past non-selection. So if you spend a while in the instance and you do one that will give you credit towards being able to queue for those duels and you're not selected, you will essentially get what I would call a fail stack, as in you'll get a buff basically hidden behind the scenes that will give you a better participation chance the next time that pops up. Apparently, Delibram Regine Savage will be adjusted to allow between 24 and 48 participants now, rather than just being 48 player. Of course, that's going to obviously become slightly easier with all of the new lost actions and new resistance ranks that are being implemented, along with all of, obviously, the new gear and stuff. With the final stage of the resistance weapon then in patch 5.55 at the end of May, you'll be able to start the quest for it as soon as you unlock Zadnaw itself and the storyline in 5.55. They say that the stats of this final weapon will be slightly better than those of the Eden's Promise Savage weapons, so that should be in basically 535 item level, something like that. It would have to be that to make it slightly better. Based on item level. Once that has been upgraded, the process of upgrading further weapons apparently will differ. That's the word used there, differ. Yoshi says, of course, we made it easier to make more than one weapon. The second weapon and any more after that will only require the last step of the quest line. The first one will still be a lot of effort, he says. So at least we know for that final stage, the other weapons will not be quite as painful as the first way through. That's what I'm taking from this. As I'm doing all 17 weapons as sort of like a casual goal, then I would like to be able to have a better chance of succeeding in that. So this is good news for me and anyone else that wants multiple weapons. They show a couple of pictures of the new Ultimate next, which of course, if you didn't know already, was the Knights 12, like Vordan, basically Ultimate. That will be coming to the game in 6.1, as we know, the first major patch out of the door of Endwalker. This was originally going to be in 5.5. This will be a level 90 scaled and will be taking place initially, as you can see, at the top of the Vault instance. That will be the setting. Very excited for that. Well, to watch it. I personally won't be taking part, but that will be in 6.1. Next up, 5.5 will contain the new Cloud Deck Diamond Weapon Trial on both Normal and Extreme, as well as the new Near Raid. Apparently, the only class changes that will be seen in 5.5 are small potency changes, and Yoshi P is said to say that these will only be 1 to maybe 2% of a buff to certain jobs. For crafting and gathering updates, there will be more challenging expert recipes added. The quote here is, there will be crafter and gatherer updates and very challenging expert recipes that will give you a shiny main hand tool when completing them, end quote. So that's something else for crafters and gatherers to go for. For the Ishgard Restoration, they will have the Skyrise celebrations. These are the sort of like Village Fate type festivals to celebrate the completion of the restoration itself. These fates will be taking place during periodic celebrations. They take place every 2 days. Fates will be held every 2 hours, then totaling 12 per celebration period. These fates will be similar to, well, normal fates, like fate events. Not confusing those two words, obviously. So you will be able to get rewards, and these are in the form of presents from the locals, thanking you for building this place, and these will be given for high participation rating. This is for crafters and gatherers. Apparently the items themselves, the rewards, contain fireworks as well as lots of other items that we will want to actually farm for. The way they describe this is basically very similar to the progression of the Ishgard Restoration itself. Every time that ranked up, there was a fate event where we had to pick up wood, chop the wood, and then put it onto something. It will be something similar to that, and the pictures do show us moving around Mughals and actually decorating the place ourselves. So that might be the way that those fates work. So Yoshida also said something that I wanted to include here. He says, quote, "It says update to Ishgard restoration, but thanks to all of you, the restoration has completed. See you in Garlemald," he laughs, end quote. Oof, foreshadowing. There will be a new custom delivery client in 5.5. That will be Count Charlemagne de Duriander. I think I've probably butchered that name, so you'll be able to dress him up when you finish that off. That will have its own rewards as well, although they're not at liberty to share that at this point. In terms of Triple Triad, 4-star cards are being adjusted, so they're more usable in decks. In terms of other Triple Triad stuff, acquisition rates will be adjusted as well, and there will finally be a reward added for getting all of the cards in the game. They're not saying what this will be yet, but this will be added in 5.55 at the end of May. Explorer mode will get level 70 Stormblood dungeons added to it, as well as the ability to toggle level sync and item level sync to both be disabled. There will also be the ability to play instruments as well inside Explorer mode. So if you want to do, I don't know, some kind of video where you play music that's able to be played on YouTube and have some, backdrops to that, you could make something cool for that kind of video. That's quite hype. The new instrument, they say, to Bard Perform will be added in 5.55 as well, so don't expect that in the patch before May. A reward for obtaining all of the trial mounts in the 5.0 series will finally be added. We looked at this before. It's kind of like a mecha dragon plane thing. This obviously will be acquired by getting all of the dragons, all of the Guiba mounts from the trials in 5.0, including the new one, which they also show. I'll show that on screen here, which is a diamond Guiba, of course. Ocean fishing gets a very small update with apparently some new indicators for bonuses, which we looked at again previously. That's going to be pretty hype. And there will be apparently new gold saucer items available in 5.5 for purchase, so you might want to do your Fashion Report Friday and save up that MGP, if you didn't already know. So they don't specify what those rewards will be, but that's a good sign to save up some MGP. Hotbar slots can now be saved when editing an active set of Blue Mage actions, apparently, in 5.5. And that's a pretty good one, honestly. It's also now going to be possible to accept achievement rewards from the achievement list itself on the UI, rather than having to go to the NPC Jonathas in Old Gridania. This will make it easier to get your rewards directly instead of having to teleport around the world. And that's a great quality of life change that I can see people instantly forgetting about and suddenly feeling very comfortable with. Great change, and I'm very happy about that personally. Apparently, collision detection will be updated in 5.5. This is a step towards fixing several issues, including the rival wings bugs that people were exploiting clipping into walls. They want to future-proof the game even further and work on preventing issues like this happening ever again. Yoshi P says, quote, "There might be some things, mainly in housing, because of these floating items, but won't be possible after this collision update anymore. We tried to keep as many of them as they are right now, but if something is broke, please let us know so that we can reverse it," end quote. So this might affect some of your housing glitches, which they're totally fine with, by the way. It's not the end of the world, but this might break a few things because they need to future-proof collision detection, and obviously housing is included in that. So in terms of the Cloud deck then, with Diamond Weapon, we get to see a preview of that. They go into the actual game to show this off, which was quite hype. It takes place on a floating ship. They did show the intro cutscene. I'm not going to show that here. He said, basically, you couldn't pull the boss here to demonstrate it because something happens when the battle starts, and apparently it will be huge spoilers, and that this airship-type platform might contain something, which is quite interesting. You can, of course, fall off the platform, as Yoshi P demonstrated, and it's quite a good-sized platform with this beautiful skybox and rendered clouds whizzing by in the background. Very nice. Apparently, as a fun fact here, the G-Warrior might be a reference to the, this is where I butcher this, Dendrobium Orchis, which is a mobile armor first appearing in Mobile Suit Gundam 83 Stardust Memory. The second fact is, therefore, your G-Warrior itself, without the attachment, is probably a reference to GP03S-Dendrobium Stamen. There we go. If that's something that Gundam people will recognize. I personally have no idea. Then that's a cool little fact to take forward. They changed the target markers in the game for the first time in 8 years, which they also demonstrate here. You can see an arrow on the hitbox of the boss here showing the front of the boss, which should help people with positioning, Yoshi P says. Yoshi D also said there are no positionals on the diamond weapon, so that's another thing to take forward as well. But this can also be shown on this slide as well with the positioning arrows, which I think is a great idea. Even though a lot of people might think this is completely unnecessary, some melee players will find this quite helpful, especially samurai. Next up, we talk about the PS5 version and show off the fast loading times, 4K display, high resolution, DualSense haptic feedback, and 3D audio that they're talking about. They demonstrated how clear the buttons are on screen and how could the textures of his Lalafell's face look, which is quite funny. They really did want to talk about the high resolution features of the PS5. Also, they show off a bonfire minion. This works pretty much like the cushion minions we already have in the game. They actually showed a emote search bar as well, which is also new, and how fast the loading times are. But there's quite a lot of mounts and minions that were shown on screen, including 2 which were included as part of a Gill Sync. They definitely called it that as well. So many people apparently ask what they can do with Gill in the game, and Yoshi P has an answer. There will be 2 mounts in particular straight off the bat as a part of a new category of mounts, they said, that can be purchased. The Ronka and Namazu mounts that you can see here are purchased directly with Gill, and they say these will be plenty of Gill and very expensive, so don't expect them to be small numbers. So, I don't know, what are we expecting? 50 million Gill, or is that too much? We'll have to wait and see, but I definitely need the Namazu one at all costs. They also showed a ton of footage here, which I've taken a picture of, with all sorts of different minions and mounts on your bars. You can see 2 types of weird deer here. They show off the dragon mount, obviously, and the Guiva mount, and a few other bits and pieces that were in the background that I'll let you look at yourself and theorize what they might be. So there's going to be lots of stuff in 5.5 to look forward to, especially for us minion collectors. So the open beta for the PS5 version begins on Tuesday the 13th once the maintenance for the patch concludes. And you can take part if you already have a service account, basically, and all those details can be found on their special website as well. So next we're on to the miscellaneous section. They're saying that loading times on all platforms will be increased. So this is something that apparently the black screen when you load into a new area, that's actually got a limit set to it of how long that's on screen, regardless of how fast you load into an area. So presumably that means that will be lessened so that loading times appear to be faster. There will also be an option to use the high-resolution UI, which will be available to the Windows version as well. If you play in 4K, you've no doubt seen this before. Things look a little bit pixelated, so we're going to have that available to us on PC as well, which is extremely exciting. So, yeah. In terms of those buffs then, we talked about earlier, slight little extra detail was that overall the numeric adjustments will be just minor, but they did mention that there will be buffs for both Warrior and Dragoon in terms of potency, small changes on places that felt insufficient apparently, and all major changes however will be done in 6.0 Endwalker instead, which I could have told you anyway without reading that. Nier basically gets a look next. This is called The Tower at Paradigm's Breach. There's lots of white textures and lots of spoilers, really, for the end of Nier Automata, if you've ever played that. The boss that they actually show off is a tentacle monster thing. Apparently it's called Jack, named after the Jack of Hearts. Yoshi says, and I quote, "We put a lot of effort into the atmosphere in this instance with sounds and other details to make the experience special." End quote. They made it easier to obtain the minions also from the previous 2 Alliance raids as well. People did give feedback for that. And they also previewed some of the new music, which I can't give you a demo of because I don't want to get a copyright strike on my YouTube channel. But you can just take it from me. It's very dingly and nice. And, there's some vocals in there. Apparently that piece of music is called Cain's Salvation. So if that's any reference that you might want to read into. Next up, they reveal what the Unreal Trial will be, and it will be, of course, Leviathan. Yes, Leviathan Unreal. It is, as usual, this is going to be a level 80 synchronized fight, and it is just as painful sounding as it used to be on extreme difficulty. Yoshi P says, and I quote here, "If you read the interviews, you already know my opinion on this one. It's difficult. When we first played it, we couldn't clear it within the hour. There are healer mechanics, high level, and the higher item level isn't helping much because it's synchronized. Remember to attack the correct target depending on your job, as the head and tail will reflect damage. The reflect damage was really high in our test runs, and we also forgot to stun and add, which was another issue." End quote. So there we go. Unreal Leviathan. Did we see that one coming? We kind of guessed it, but I was more leaning towards Garuda and Ifrit personally, but there we go. Next up, we look at some housing items wrapping up towards the end of the live letter here, which look absolutely incredible. I'm going to leave these on screen for a little bit. There's one particular piece of furniture, however, that we have to mention that I'm hyped for, which they call a TV screen. And apparently the image represented on it will actually move. And they also demonstrate there are certain like framed windows that you can place on top of these to make it look like there's like a scenery moving outside your house as well. These things are absolutely huge. They seem to come in multiple sizes. It looks great. I can't wait to see more of these housing items in the actual game. There's a really nice table with a tartan tablecloth on it as well and stuff like that. Very, very hype. Next up, they show off some new glamour. There's this beautiful, sexy dress that kind of reminds me of kind of like a 50s outfit, and this male outfit that kind of looks a little bit like a budget Indiana Jones with a hat there. Very nice, and yeah, I'm looking forward to any of this stuff. Very exciting. And then finally, they go through some of the announcements. Basically, what you already know, FanFest Digital will be on the 15th of May and the 16th of May 2021. They reiterate a lot of the details, including the Lunar Whale mount that you can purchase. The Lunar Whale will be available for purchase on the 14th of May, along with the minions and a few other new things. Of course, there's the minions Rosa, Rydia, and Edge from Final Fantasy IV, but there will also be new orchestrion roles in packs of 5. There's the Pulse remixes of some of the popular music, the Saint and Sinners album, and also a band album. So there's sets of 5. There's 3 sets of 5 orchestrion roles you can purchase, and all of that stuff, including the mount, and the Rose, Rydia, and Edge minions will be available on the 14th of May for you to purchase, just in time for you to enjoy FanFest on the digital stream, which of course will be free on Twitch, and it will feature all staged events. Digital activities will also be included both online and in-game, with lots of new contests and social media giveaways and things like that, and screenshot sort of competitions. Frankly, it looks awesome, and I can't wait to take part in some of this and have a look at it. But obviously, details on the keynote address and other plans for the event broadcast were shown on slides as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it, apart from talking about merchandise, which if you didn't know and you live in the EU, you can get a hold of the Sin Eater t-shirt, and the Hades t-shirt is now on the Final Fantasy XIV store section of the Square Enix merchandise store online as well. So there we go. That was Live Letter Part 63 in its entirety. That was a little bit longer than I expected, but there wasn't that many juicy details, but there was a few, pieces of information that I would say was definitely worth it. Hopefully you found this summary better than sitting there for a good 2.5 hours. I certainly would appreciate this if I was a viewer. So much love. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you're most excited for in the comment section, and I'll see you all next time.